Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to fail. Failure is a part of the process, and I would say it's more a part of the process than succeeding. When I look back on the last decade of my life and in the last 7 years of my career, more of it has been failures than successes. But you really learn from the failures because it forces you to navigate why it went wrong versus successes get celebrated and we move on.
Buckle up for a new episode of the S.H.E podcast, the show where we have real and raw conversations to inspire and empower you to be seen and heard so you can create balance and everything you want in your life and business. I'm your host, Heidi Schock, and I'm excited to walk alongside of you on this journey of being seen, heard, and empowered. Welcome to another episode of the S.H.E podcast. I'm really excited to be chatting with my guest today because we're going to be moving from entrepreneurship more into the corporate space, which I'm really excited to talk about because it's something that I think for many of you listening who are maybe were in entrepreneurship or moving into the corporate space, or you're in the corporate space, this powerful woman is going to be able to share with you her journey as well as some amazing tools and tips of her trade. So I would love to introduce you to Kash Rocheleau. So Kash, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Before we dive in, I'm just going to give everybody a little background and then we'll dive into this conversation. So, Kash Rocheleau served as the Chief Financial Officer for Icon Foods, soon moving into the CEO role as of May 10th, 2024, just this year. She oversees the financial operations, reporting, and compliance of these organizations, as well as drives their growth and profitability. She has a strong background in legal matters such as acquisitions, negotiation, trademark applications, regulatory compliance, and contract drafting, which enables her to handle complex and diverse transactions and issues. She currently holds an MBA degree from Eastern Washington University with the focus on accounting and finance to further enhance her skills and knowledge in this field. In her free time, she loves to be with her family, spend time outdoors, and golf. I'm in South Florida, Kash, so I grew up playing golf in high school. So I love that you play golf.
Yeah, I
um,
actually just found it. I mean, it's kind of a sick sport and not sick in a cool way, like sick in like a mental, why do you do this to yourself kind of way.
It is. It can be a stressful sport. If you walk, it's a lot of activity too. If you're walking and carrying that bag, which I had to do in high school,
Yeah.
as adults, we typically ride the golf cart, but it can be pretty active too if you take the walking journey part of it. But yeah, it's a mentally challenging game. And I know I've heard a lot of people can throw some clubs along the way. So
I
yeah.
have not gotten there yet, but the correlation to life is just fascinating to me. I mean, in most sports, it just comes so fast. In golf, you are in sticky situations from the tee box on hole one a lot of times, and you just kind of have to take the shot where it lies. And I find myself in all areas of life, whether it be personal, professional, relational, you kind of have to take it as it comes. There's no do-overs, there's no what ifs. The ball's laying there, figure out how to get it out into the hole.
Yeah, and then you make a good point on this. I just thought of this as you were talking. Literally, you leave one hole, you pick, that ball out of the cup from putting that last shot, and now you're moving on to the next hole. You've got to leave that past result behind you, and now it's start over. It's a new hole and keep driving forward. So that's like I love that we talked about golf a little bit and brought this into the conversation. So you are the CEO of Icon Foods. Can you tell us more about Icon Foods and how you went from CFO into the CEO position?
Yeah. So Icon Foods, we manufacture natural sweeteners. So for listeners out there, erythritol, allulose, stevia, monk fruit, those are the types of ingredients that we're working with. They occur naturally in nature. They are not chemically derived or synthetically derived. And we work mostly business to business. So we are working with companies and brands that ultimately will go to the grocery store shelves that consumers purchase from. So our goal is clean label sugar reduction, really eliminating or reducing sugar out of the modern American diet.
Mm, amazing.
And my
So
role here, sorry,
go
that
ahead.
was a two-part question. I totally missed that. My kind of journey in this, I was a stay-at-home mom. We had some infertility before I had my first, which really kind of exacerbated my desire to stay home and be a full-time mom until I was doing it. There is nothing against anyone that chooses to do that. My husband, in fact, stays home with our kids and gets fulfillment and joy and everything that he needs out of it. But I was not feeling fulfilled as a person.
Mhm.
I felt like I was kind of really just going through the day to get through the day without any purpose. And for me, it was not sustainable. And so I needed to get back into the workforce. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a degree in business. It was just a general business degree. And for me, having a business degree, I didn't know where I wanted to go. Finance, accounting, marketing, sales, had no clue. Just needed to get out of the four walls of my house. And Icon Foods had an opening for an executive assistant to the CFO. And being a mom to three and a wife to one, all that came through my head was like, how hard can this be? Like, you keep kids alive, you keep a husband moving through his day, like you can certainly help keep a finance department operating. And about 4 months into that journey, the CFO at the time had a family situation and had to go back to her home state. And the level of trust that was built over those 4 or 5 months drew her to advocate that I could do her role. And she really advocated to me, to the founder and CEO at the time. And I'm very much a type A, like you're gonna do this, you're gonna
Mm.
sink or swim, and sinking was not an option. And so I really just rallied around my network of people that I had built in that short time and had a lot of support and decided that I was gonna go back and get my master's degree. And so over the course of the last 7 years, I helped grow the finance department in the company, and our founder finally got to a point after 25 years where he decided he was ready to move on, and I assumed the role of CEO.
Wow, what a story. And I love that you shared that everybody has a different path. And one path, we may start off on one path, like a stay-at-home mom. And we may, once we're in that role, whether it's in a corporate position, whether it's as an entrepreneur, or whether it's a parent, we may realize at some point we get to pivot. And it's okay. And there's no shame, blame in that game. And you don't have to feel guilty about it. You can still go after your dreams and achieve it and go, listen, I thought I wanted this because I was a stay-at-home mom too. And I moved through my entrepreneurship journey because I was going through a divorce. And my why was I wanted to be home with my kids. So that's why I went into entrepreneurship. But at the same time, it's not for everybody. And there's times where I'm like, I don't want to be home with them. We need that break. And so, and for any of you women listening, if you're feeling that, there's no guilt in it. You get to do what's best for you. I went through burnout and I had to take a step back from the business because I'm like, my kids are getting the worst of me. So if you're better off running a career, I mean, you're running a company, they're getting the best versions of you when they're with you. And it's more over quality than quantity when it comes to parenting and any relationship.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And when I've had this conversation in the past, I've mentioned that in that season of my life where I felt like this is what I wanted and I finally got the dream come true, I wasn't the best version of myself as a wife. I wasn't the best version of myself as a mom, as a daughter, as a friend, because I wasn't fulfilled myself. And I truly believe that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And my cup at that time was very empty. So, yeah, you have you have to know that you can pivot. You may want to stay home and you realize it's not for you. You may get into the workforce and realize it's not for you. You may get into sales and realize it's not for you. And I think accepting and having people around you that can support those pivots is invaluable.
Yeah. And I know behind the scenes before we hit the record button, you had shared that you really have a passion for empowering women. And
Mhm.
I'm so grateful to have you on this show because I think this is a great conversation we're moving into where around being seen, being heard, and empowering yourself to do that and move through fear. And I want to talk into two pieces of this, which probably you're not expecting, but I hope it's okay. It's where the first one is, was that conversation hard once you realized that everybody wasn't getting the best version of you and you weren't lit up, right? You weren't lit up in what you thought was going to make you happy. And you realize, like, you know what, there's more that I want to do. And I want to have that time. Like, I want the time that I have with my family to be the best that I can, that best out of my day, right? Out of my week, out of my month, out of my years with them. Was that a conversation hard to have, that when you decided and realized, like, you know what, I think I do want to change. I do want to pivot.
That's a great question and not, I mean, a surprise, but completely welcomed. For me, it was more of an internal struggle because I felt really selfish. And, my husband and I had talked for years before. I had quite a bit of infertility before I had my first. So we talked for years before. I want to stay home. I want to be financially stable so that we don't have to make a decision on our children going to daycare or who's going to do the pickup, or making a certain amount of dollars. And so for me, it felt really selfish. And I've been saying this is what I want for years. And he had blessed me with that opportunity. And now I'm in a place where, like, this isn't really what I want. I felt super selfish and I felt really ungrateful. But when I started wrestling with it, I journaled daily. I started just getting it out on paper, trying to navigate some of these feelings and these thoughts. And for those that know me as a person, know that I married a significantly better person than myself. And for that, I'm infinitely grateful for. But the conversation with him was easy. Like, as soon as I just got it out and said, like, I just don't think that this is for me. I love our children. For him, it was an easy, okay, well, what do you want to do? Which I know and recognize that that is not um, the same award that every female male relationship is awarded. But the conversation itself was easy. It was more of an internal struggle. But it has helped along the way in realizing that those feelings are okay to have. Just don't let them define you. I
Mm.
know I'm not an ungrateful person. I know I'm not a selfish person, but I didn't let them define me, and I had the open conversation. Like, this isn't for me. And as soon as he heard it, he kind of said and agreed, like, yeah, we've had better days as a married couple. You've had better days as a mom. Your fuse is a little shorter. And so the conversation, no, not hard. The the internal conversation getting there, very difficult.
You say a lot of great points, though, that you have to have the conversation, whether it's with
Mhm.
yourself or with someone else or both. You need to have the conversation. And it starts with you. And I love that you mentioned journaling because by getting it out on paper and like really getting connected to you first, you're going to be in a better position to be able to communicate that to someone else because you've moved through the process yourself of what it is you truly, truly want versus going, I think I want this and I think I want that. And I know for men, they think differently than we do. So
Mhm.
you came to him in a very clear way, which men are very logical. They're like logical. We're emotional. They're logical. So if we can meet them where they are, it's going to help that conversation too, and moving forward. And they're going to be like, of course, they want to give us our partners, whether male, female, whatever. They want to give us whatever we want, as long as we come to them with a clear picture of like, hey, this is what I've been thinking about. This is what I've been feeling. This is what I think is going to be best for us. And he already knew it. Like, I love that you shared that too. So for any of you listening, going, I don't know what to do. I want to make a change, but they already kind of know. There's already things that they're feeling of how we're showing up or how you're showing up. That once you come to them, they're going to be like, yeah, yeah, I see it. Yep, you're
Yeah.
right. We need to make the change. Um, the second thing I had from that, what you shared earlier, Was there a fear? Like now you're going from being a stay-at-home mom, moving through your infertility process that you had. You now have your children at home, and now you're moving into the workforce. Was there any fear that you had to process and move through? And if there was, how did you navigate that?
Again, again, the fear is always internal with me. I very much internalize things, and I personally work myself up and stress myself up over things that are just so unnecessary to do. But for me, again, it was, am I doing the right thing for my kids? Like, are they going to see this as mom doesn't want to be with them? Or are they going to see this as mom spends more time at work? Or all of these things, like, that's what I was internalizing, and that's what made it really difficult. Um, but again, I had the conversation, like, what if our kids feel this way? And my husband, again, being the man that he is, was they'll understand, right? If they're not getting the best version of you now, those questions probably aren't going to be there if you're showing up better, and really kind of emphasized quality over quantity. Yeah, right now you get 24 hours a day with them, but are they getting the best version of you for 24 hours? That was an easy no.
Mhm.
So, they may get 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening before bed, but that's 4 hours where they are getting your full attention. You're fully engaged. You are fulfilled, which means you can fulfill them and their needs, instead of just kind of going through that motion of let's do another puzzle, let's crayon draw, let's clean up the mess and try not to explode. And so when we started kind of dialoguing through that, and I would rather be the best version in all areas that I show up than just being a presence, because you can look at that in the negative too. Yeah, my mom was home all day long, but she didn't, she had a
Yeah,
short fuse, or
exactly.
um, she was so drained that I colored by myself while she was off doing XYZ. And so when you start to kind of write down the pros and cons, or discuss kind of the pros and cons, it made it a lot easier to
Yeah.
realize that quantity over quality, and where do you want the weight to be. And for me, it really was, I want them to get a quality version of mom.
Yeah. Yeah, and I shared earlier, I went into entrepreneurship. I worked two jobs while I was building the business, and the goal was I wanted to be home with them. But honestly, I'm home with them, but they're at school all day. And then I'm home with them and they're doing their own thing. They're 13 and 15 now, almost 14 and 15. So even though I'm home with them, we're not getting, all that time together. And I was going through a divorce, so single. And so that like being able to just drop everything and go pick them up from school was one of the reasons I wanted to do this. If you're listening, it's on a case by case different. Nothing's right or wrong. It's whatever works best for you. So I love that we had this conversation because mom guilt is a big thing. And we all have it. And I think it's something that as women, we need to be able to support each other and going and helping each other move through that, because I don't know that we'll ever get rid of it. But if we open that conversation up and be like, listen, let's pull the mask off of the mom guilt and say that we all have it and we're not perfect. Like that's another thing, perfectionism. We're all trying to look perfect to each other because nobody wants to be the worst mom. It's not a competition, right? So I thank you for sharing all of that. And I have a question. You have three children, you have a husband, and you're running a company. Like, holy cow. And you have your MBA and all of this. What motivates you and inspires you and keeps you going?
It's funny is, I don't know, craziness. I'm not a good sedentary person. And I mean that in all areas. When life is crazy and chaos and I'm going from A to B, I typically am thriving in that. In the calm moments tend to be when I start to spiral. My MBA, actually, I look back on it and I don't know how I'm standing here today when I look back on that year. When I started with Icon, I had both my oldest and my middle. And shortly after I started, my husband and I thought we were done. Like I said, we had quite a bit of infertility before my first and after my first, before my second. And at that point, we were just kind of done. And the Lord was like, just kidding, here you go. And so while my daughter was 9 months old, I had decided to get back into the workforce. And shortly after that, I found out I was pregnant with my third. And that news announcement to us coincided with a deployment for my husband. And so while I was 5 months pregnant with my third, he actually got deployed, and I was in the middle of my MBA, and I was not just doing a class here or there. I was full-time working for Icon at this time, sitting as
Wow.
their CFO, two little ones at home, pregnant with a third, my husband deployed. And so I don't know how I got through that other than just like the chaos of life. But for me, yeah, I find that when I'm calm, like I'm spiraling, which is probably not the healthiest way to live, but I know that it works for me.
Yeah.
So I follow a calendar. My life is really penciled out. I don't have a lot of friends, but the friends that I do have are quality friends that really can ground me and kind of be that sounding board for when I really do need a pause in my life or when I need to slow down. And those voices, when they do finally come through, tend to be very loud. So I don't do it on my own, that's for sure.
Well, you listen to those voices, and that's good too. You're very in tune with your intuition and you listen. So that's really important as well. And someone else's chaos is someone else's calm, right? Someone's
Mhm.
chaos is someone else's calm.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're on the go, you're very driven. So
Mhm.
what would you say to young women who are driven like you are? What would your advice be for them to gain traction if they want to move upward in their corporate job or where they're at right now?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to fail. Failure is a part of the process, and I would say it's more a part of the process than succeeding. When I look back on the last decade of my life and in the last 7 years of my career, more of it has been failures than successes. But you really learn from the failures because it forces you to navigate why it went wrong versus successes get celebrated and we move on.
Mm.
I would also say, kind of piggybacking on the comment you made about mom guilt, like, don't look at things with rose-colored glasses. We're all doing the best we can, and there are going to be women along the way that don't want the growth that you are trying to achieve, and that's okay because we do need people in the business world and in life that are happy being complacent where they're at. Don't compare yourself
Mm.
because everyone is on a different journey. And I would also say, make sure on both sides of this, make sure that you are finding and leaning in and listening to your mentors. And if you don't have one, I really encourage you to have one. But on the flip side, make sure that you're bringing someone along with you. I've got people on both sides of the fence that pour wisdom into me, and it is my responsibility to pour that wisdom down and bring those people along with me. I try to look at, my role is replaceable. And on the daily, I'm
Mm.
looking for my replacement because if I'm not doing that, I'm stuck. And for entrepreneurs, for people that are really driven like that, being stuck is an Achilles heel. When you
Mm.
feel stuck, the entrapment, jail, all of that really starts to pile on. Don't be afraid of people that are smarter than you or can do your job better because it gives you more opportunities.
Yeah, it's like that saying goes, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
100%, a
Yeah.
100%. Make sure that, I say this to my leadership team, you are all here at this table for a reason because you are experts in your respected areas and you are supposed to be pouring into me. If I'm an expert in production or warehouse, marketing, sales, you don't need to be here.
Mm.
So, yeah, you are 100% right in that.
Yeah, that's so good. And going back to what you said, release the judgment, release other people's judgment. Don't let somebody's judgment of what you want. If you're driven and somebody else is judging you for that and you're a mom, then they're not supposed to be in your circle. So find the people who are like-minded like you, like Cash, and reach out to those people and surround yourself with those people. And again, find the rooms of people that you can learn from and that will help you grow into where you want to go next and evolve to. And again, there's no right or wrong, whatever works for you. But if you're driven and you want something and you have big dreams and goals, don't let anybody else's opinion or judgment stop you from going after it. At the end of the day, it's your life. That they have their life, and they're not the ones going to be like. I think about this. I was listening when I first was moving through the divorce and started my business. I listened to the YouTube. I was listening to free stuff,
Mhm.
anything. And I say that I still listen to it. I love Les Brown. And he used to say, when you're on your deathbed and you're looking back in life, like,
Mhm.
are you going to have regrets? Don't have any regrets. And don't let somebody else's judgment or opinions of you help you create those regrets. So thank you for that. So as a CEO, as a mom, as all the things that you're juggling, and I'm sure you have to make some big, big decisions, whether it's on the daily or however often, like what is your approach to making big picture decisions?
Yeah, so it's kind of changed, and the transition from a CFO to a CEO is a pretty big transition. You both are a part of the C-suite, but um, people that have done both roles or people that sit in one or the other will understand that there are dual controls, specifically in a finance department or accounting department. And what I mean by that is you've got to protect that because there is a lot of liability in that department. And so the person that cuts the check should not be the person signing the check. The person that, opens the mail should not be the person depositing the mail for obvious reasons, right? You put in these dual controls, and the CEO and CFO in business typically play that dual control role, right? They both are able to make big decisions, but they typically don't make them without the approval or buy-in of the other side. And the finance side of things, or being in that CFO role, I really am data driven. And so I was able to make decisions based on data, which is very easy, right? Because it's the numbers. The numbers don't lie. There's a black and there's a white. You can play in the gray. Typically, finance individuals don't like to. And so I was able to make decisions very fast. Yes, no, here's the decision, why, and here's the data that backs it. In a CEO role, the data can be very ambiguous because you're dealing with multiple departments now and multiple personalities, which there's data out there, but it makes it a lot harder to put data behind an individual and a personality. And so for me now, my decisions tend to be a little quicker, and being type A, or sorry, a little slower. And being type A, that makes it very difficult because I want to get from A to B. I want to check off the tasks. I want to move through the to-dos and get done with the things that need to get done. The problem with that is when you sit in a CEO role, your decisions affect everyone. So you may be making a decision for your sales department, but that decision now has a trickle down effect to marketing, to production, to purchasing, to XYZ. And so I've really slowed down in my decision making process to really evaluate the pros and cons and how they're going to affect each individual and each department. And it's been a little bit of a transition for my team because they're so used to quick decisions, and they put things on my desk like, I need a decision now. And for me, it was really hard at first to say, I'm not going to give you a decision right now. I don't have to give you a decision now. That'd be irresponsible of me. My responsibility is to protect the organization as a whole, which means I need to give due diligence to the decision. And so making decisions for me is a slower process, slower than most of my team wants it to be, but it tends to have less backfire on them. When the decision finally is made, there tends to be less animosity. I would say less cons because there's really a definitive why behind it. And
Mm.
while it's not always the popular decision, it's the understood decision. And part two of that is I'm a big believer in Simon Sinek and starting with the why. And so when I make a decision, it's not just this is the decision. It's really explaining why this decision was made in the way that it was, and and the reasonings behind it. When people understand why something is made, you tend to have more buy-in. And that's not just in an organization. I would say that that's in a personal life, a parenting life, relational lives. My kids tend to understand why we don't spill milk at the dinner table if I give them reasons why. And I think that that feeds up into organizations, whether you're at a manager, director, or a C-suite level.
Yeah, that was all such great information because I know there's a lot of women that are listening who are entrepreneurs. Some are solopreneurs and some are starting or building teams. And this is great because as you're building teams, it's not just you anymore. When you're a solopreneur, you can just make a decision. It only affects you. If it's a mistake, it only affects you. But when as you're growing and building a team, it's good to kind of sometimes we got to slow down to make the faster progress, right? It's just like sometimes we need to take a step back in order to take two or three steps forward. And there's nothing wrong with it. Again, release the guilt, any guilt around it. Like I love what you said. At the end of the day, once you make the decision, it has less backfire. Most likely it won't backfire because you've taken that time to weigh out all the pros and cons and make the most best decision for your company, your team, and yourself. That I'm sure I know that trickles down into your family as well. So as you're slowing down there, then you're going to be able to slow down elsewhere. And for you to be a type A and go getter, I just have to say you are super calm. You are very calm and relaxed.
I don't know if the people in my life would agree with that, but um I'm definitely the more animated, upbeat than my husband, probably because I'm only on coffee cup number one right now. But yeah, exactly what you just said. You have to realize, I mean, in my organization, we have 30 employees, and I take that responsibility very seriously because it's not just those 30 employees in that building. They also have significant others and children and houses to put them in and food to put on their tables. And decisions have to be made with care and with that in mind because one decision could cost, you know, a turnover in production. If we have to slow things down, you just lost seven people, and those seven people, they have, 21 other people relying on them. And
Right.
so I think it is very important as you kind of grow and build a business from being by yourself to building those teams to understand that the responsibility that you carry with those decisions and the people that it impacts is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of teams, because you were talking about making decisions and the best ones, along the way for your team, how do you influence and inspire your team?
It's a good question. I would say that I try to lead with trust. I would say trust and stewardship and servantship. For me, I try to walk in the door with the mentality that I am there to serve them. I think it gets really easy as you rise through the ranks. And I've had my moments of this, right? When you get just a little bit of power, it tends to make a big impression more on you and not in a great way. A lot of people will reference it as the vanilla extract of power, right? That little drop just makes you think that you're a big person. I think if you change the lenses that you look through more with positive intent and who you're there to serve, it kind of changes how you walk through the door. And for me, again, realizing that I have these 30 people that come in every day to do what we do, when I shift the mindset to if I don't have those 30 people, this business isn't here because I can't sell the goods, market the goods, purchase the goods, produce the goods, get them on a truck. I can't do that by myself. And so, really coming in with the mindset that I'm there to serve them and trust them. I hired them for a reason and for their expertise. Far be it from me to come in and micromanage. That's not to say that you can't have expectations, right? When you hire someone, you've got to set very clear expectations, whether it be through KPIs, through bonus incentives, through job descriptions. There are a multitude of ways that you can set your expectations, but giving them the autonomy to do their jobs in the best way possible, I think is what works for me in inspiring my team.
Yeah, they get to have some ownership into
Hmm.
what they're creating as well. And I think that's really, really important because people want to feel like they're contributing. They want to feel like
Hmm.
they matter. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. And by you allowing them to have that autonomy and that, creative outlet or whatever, depending on their role, then without being over them all the time, micromanaging them, I can only imagine how that leads to a better work environment and, loyalty and long-term, less turnover too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where can we find you, Cash, and can we learn more about Icon Foods?
So Icon Foods you can find at iconfoods.com. We're also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all of the social media platforms. I am also on LinkedIn. It should just be at Kash Rocheleau. I'm also on Instagram. And if you go on the website, my email and all of that should be right there.
Perfect. And we're going to drop all those links in the show notes as well. So go check out Icon Foods, go check out Cash. And Cash, well, I have a final question for you. Do
Mhm.
you have a fun fact, something behind the scenes that we wouldn't know about you by checking out your social media platforms or Icon Foods?
I actually, excuse me, I would say a fun fact, although I am very busy and love to be on the go, I do enjoy vacationing and traveling. And so traveling the world is something that I do like to do, but I also keep it very private. So when scroll through my social media, you probably won't see a lot of my travel stuff.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite destination that you've been to so far?
Um, it sounds so cliche, but Maui is one of my favorite
Yeah.
places. It just seems to be very quiet. I've not been there since the destruction of all of the fires. We're headed there for Christmas,
Mm.
to hopefully support some of their economy and getting them back on track. But a lot of special moments have been shared in Maui.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that, some behind the scenes about you. I appreciate it. Is there anything that you would love to just, any last words or any tips or suggestions or that you'd like to share with everybody?
Yeah, I would just double that, make sure that you have mentors and make sure that you are mentoring others and be bold. The world needs more confident, bold women, people in general, but I firmly believe more bold, confident women.
Beautiful. I couldn't have said it better. And, doing what you did, taking that step and realizing that I keep reflecting on what your story and your journey and just like really realizing like this isn't what lights me up. Like I love my family and I want to be here for them, but I also want to create this. It's also showing your children that you can go after your dreams and no matter what, you should definitely prioritize your wants and I love that because I think that more women, because we would love to take care, we're nurturers. We love to take care of everybody else. And we put our needs behind others. That doesn't show our children, especially our daughters, that they should and can have anything that they want to have and go after anything they want. So thank you so much for sharing that. And for you listening, if you're in that space where you're like, I really want, I think it's time for me to pivot in whatever it is, whether it's in your job, in your business, or in your current situation, then take some time, journal on it, have the conversation with yourself, and then go after your dreams. Don't stop. Like Cash said, women, we need bold, courageous, confident women out there, especially for our next generations who are coming up the pike. So thank you so much, Cash, for this conversation. It's been amazing. I'm so grateful to have you on the show today. And is there anything we can do to support you?
No, thank you for having me. It's the pleasure really has been all mine. I would say, there have been so many great women behind us, and there are so many great women that will be in front of us that just keep on the path, keep supporting the women around you, the people around you. Kindness is free. It doesn't cost anything to be kind to people. Don't use people as drivers for your success. Bring them along with you.
Mm, that's perfect. Couldn't think of a better way to close. So thank you so much again, Cash. Thank you for listening and being here with us today. Go be seen, be heard, and empowered. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Be She podcast.